In this last part of the liturgical year, we are given certain warnings. St. Paul, in describing the man who is orientated towards the immediate, is describing perfectly the man of our time. There is nothing new under the sun. Enemies of the cross of Christ, their end is ruin. Their God is the belly. The other translation that we had was appetite. The regard of man towards, essentially, pleasure. We eat to live, but some people live to eat. And so of many other pleasures in life. They are disorientated. The energy goes completely in the wrong direction. But they could be us, if we're honest, only it's a little more subtle. Their glory is in their shame. Things that are looked at in the privacy of people's rooms and mobile phones nowadays, shameful things. Energy goes hugely into this, and it's a psychological addiction that has been scientifically examined. Pornography actually has an effect on the brain, a very bad effect, and one sees how it becomes, by a progressive mechanism, a way of inner thought and life which completely devastates the inner man. And very respectable professional people are into this addiction, but you wouldn't have a clue about it. So energy, thought, and eventually time goes this way. On he goes. They mind the things of earth. Well, we have to live. But there are ways and means of limiting the damage. He goes on, but our citizenship is in heaven, from which also we eagerly await a Saviour. Now, in the years when I was enclosed in France, at Sélignac, the Charterhouse, there was a letter over the cell, according to the alphabet, and I was in N, and then eventually M next door, but N, and it always has a verse of scripture starting with that letter. So the one there was Nostra conversatio in celis est. Our conversation, our citizenship is in heaven. An invitation to be essentially not orientated towards the earth, but already thinking heavenly thoughts, keeping company to an invisible friend, indeed indivisible friends, a different mode of passing through time, where time actually is completely consecrated and lifted up, every second of it, to gaining merit, to holding up the world, to praising God. So all the structure there was in view of making sure that that and only that happened. As it happens, this last week I had a lot of time to think about that because I was giving a retreat in a monastery which just does that, and very well, by the way. Adoration, day and night, non-stop. Great care given to the liturgy. Silence well kept. Separation from the world well observed, with no shortcuts. Because that's the Trojan horse nowadays, the modern shortcuts to the world that one has left. The result is that the mind actually is free and is not brought down by this clutter which makes it difficult to hear little things. If we are fully engaged with all that we can be engaged with, there is a lot in our head. And it is very difficult, if we're honest, then to let go and to get into a different wavelength, the real one, precisely, we are warned, is awaiting us. And this last week, when, with nothing really coming from the world for a whole week, I was able to hear again the time passing in its purity and unhurriedness. I see the damage that is being done to modern man, even to the consecrated. It's probably, if you're honest, your danger at least as well. From adolescence upwards probably, because everyone is now into this. It's part of life. Now, as I was concluding this retreat, one thing did hit me strongly, and I shared it actually with the retreatants. The choice in going back to the world is right now in our hands. Life is going. As it happened, I had a birthday when I was there, and one sees time going each time, a chunk, a year at a time. And one sees, well, actually, I am being contaminated. It wasn't as before all this came in. One important thing we need to be aware of is this. If we want to take into our hands again control, we have to do so in an energetic way. Because otherwise what's going to happen is this. We will be slaves. Our life will pass. And at the end we will look back, perhaps from the other side, and see, well, actually, I didn't have the quality of life that I could have a generation earlier. I sacrificed my life to what I was expected to, because everyone else has it. Essentially, it's over-availability. We have the right not to be available. Do you know that now, sometimes, professional people who go on an expensive holiday can't get away totally from their work. They just have a quick check on email, which might be professional, and they're straight away. They're elsewhere. We also are all the time divided and weakened psychologically if we are not able to follow through in depth in one line of thought, one line of engagement with Him, and actually with each other. Quality time, uninterrupted. Because it actually damages the capacity of the psyche to engage in depth with, for instance, an analysis which demands total attention. Writing a paper, analysing an argument, writing a proper letter, it all demands complete emptiness from anything else. And if suddenly one is called by something quite different, the whole thrust, which actually goes of its own accord after a while, is lost. Because if one gets into a serious study, or anything of the nature, it takes on after a while its own momentum and carries itself through until it's finished. You interrupt that and you've got poor quality thought. It's impossible to do serious research if you're interrupted. That applies to every element of interior life. We can't be always available to more than one thing. So that's the question, my friends, as we go through life. What do I want to be totally available to? Because if I care for my soul, if I care for my relationship with Him, I will take the measures in my own hand to make myself available to Him, because He just can't get through. And do you know, I forget who it is now, but I heard that there's a recent mystic who has been told by the Lord that he's going to have to intervene, because this instant communication across the whole planet has made it impossible for him to get through to his creatures. It's only one generation since basically we're completely sacrificed to technology. What do we want? As I came to the end of the retreat, I sat and thought, I come back to this monastery, often they keep calling me, I came back again to the same room, it's always the same room, but even though it's geographically the same room, I'm standing not on the same spot. Time is going through me, and I stand always on a different point in time, and there are long chunks of time by now, years, coming back to that spot, with long chunks gone in between. Life is passing. It's worth putting the brakes on, especially towards the end of the year. We will all be getting new diaries and new calendars. They're virgin. What will we fill them with? More of this or this? The choice, my friends, is ours. But it has to be taken, and I leave it with you in His name. Give Him your availability and let Him fill your thoughts. Don't be addicted to what is purely, actually a tool for the enemy of your soul.